Good morning, Dr. Earles.
Good morning.
Last time we saw you, you said that you would show us some pictures. We're going to have a little show and tell regarding hair loss through hair braiding and also hair loss through using the perm, the chemical. And you're going to show us how hair transplantation can help alleviate these losses. Could you please show us the children first?
Hair loss. Hair loss occurs usually in children. It happens as adults as well, but it starts off as children. The attempt at hair loss is, let me correct you, parents do not try to cause their children any hair loss. What they do is to give them their beauty. However, they attempt at giving them their beauty via the history of the way hair is treated and used may cause significant hair loss. In our women, one of the primary reasons historically in the method that hair is used in beauty is to braid the hair. Now, braiding the hair, it simply takes the hair from the scalp and puts it in knots so that it doesn't flow. Comes in a braid. Now, braiding itself, putting them together like that, does not cause any damage to the hair. That part coming as it moves along. But now hair, initially starts, the hair comes from the scalp and the hair is pulled. And it's usually in 3 pieces of hair. And it's pulled from the scalp and it's braided in such a way it goes, well, we get a plait, we get a braid. Now, the initial hair that comes from the scalp, we usually see that it is straight. And it's straight because it is pulled. And it was pulled, then that is what the problem is. Because pulling the hair significantly and then tying it, braiding it, keeps it pulled. And when it pulls the hair like that from the scalp and it pulls in the scalp, it diminishes the blood circulation to the root of the hair that we cannot see. And that may cause a problem to cause hair loss. And in fact, it does, because many of our women who have had hair braids, tight braids as a child, and this is something that parents give to their children to give them beauty. Then they're not attempting to cause any hair loss. However, historically, this is the way it's been in us. And so our women have done that way. They've braided the hair and pulled it tight. And it's braided in such a way so it won't come loose. And that way, it can cause significant hair loss.
And we've seen this in Amish women as well, with their hair pulled back. and they've had hair loss along the side, along the hairlines.
That's true. That was amazing to see those Amish women with hair loss, because usually people who are not African American, who are not people of color, usually don't have hair loss because they don't usually have tight braids like that. But it was fascinating to see Amish women with tight braids. So that gave evidence that tight braids, or too tight braids, if you will, are very damaging and can cause hair loss.
Dr. Earls, could we take a look at your pictures?
Yes. Now, keep in mind that mothers and sisters and all relatives braid the hair to make it beautiful, make the hair beautiful, and is a historical way of treating young girls with beautification. Now, this is a picture of hair, and you can see that the hair coming out to that rubber band is straight. And you can also see that she has typical African American hair. It is not straight, but the hair that comes from the scalp to that rubber band is straight, which means that there is a permanent pull of the hair. And it pulls the hair, which means that it also pulls the root of the hair. It pulls the hair under the scalp. And when it pulls the hair and the scalp as well, it pulls the blood vessels. And when it pulls the blood vessels, it narrows the blood vessels, so it may close them all together, and it may unfortunately diminish or completely take away the nutrition and the oxygen, and it diminishes the health of the hair. So what can happen? What will happen to the hair? It may die. And so if you simply look at some people who have that tight hair, then there's a diminished amount of hair. So there's some hair loss in this unfortunate little girl. And so you may say, oh, well, she doesn't have much hair loss. She does. And if she will continue with this, she'll lose. Here's another one. And as you can see, you see how her hair is coming out of her scalp, and it goes to that knot, and her hair is straight. Well, she doesn't have straight hair. That hair is pulled, and it stays straight, and then it's tied to make it straight. And when it's pulled like that, it's also pulling the skin. And so it pulls the skin, then their blood vessels are attached to the skin. And the blood vessels, when they're pulled like that, they become narrow. So there's less blood that goes to the hair. And in some places, there's insufficient behavior to give the hair what it's need to keep it alive. It's like Suppose somebody put your hand over your nose and you don't get air. Well, you're going to die. Well, the hair needs blood to live. And if it doesn't get the blood to live, it will die. And so that is an unfortunate thing. And it's unfortunate because this is not any attempt of parents or relatives to kill hair. They want to just give beauty. They want to give them beauty. But unfortunately, this gift of beauty can cause dangerous and even death to some of the hair. Loss. And if you can see that it's clearer on this one, you see how straight that hair is that comes from the roots, from the skin, straight. She doesn't have straight hair. It's it's pulled, made straight, and then tied. Look at this. Tied. Straight hair. It's pulled tight and tied. And with that pulled tight and tied, it also pulls the skin. It also pulls the blood vessels. Pulls the blood vessels, it diminishes the circulation of the hair. It also, the roots of the hair are pulled and they don't even able to function the way they normally do. They don't get what they need and they can't function as normality.
Yeah.
So, there are others. It's common. This is a commonality. As you are aware, this is something that our people have done for years and years and years, even centuries. It's a natural behavior of giving them beauty, if you will, in our minds to our children, because this is the way that it's done. But over and over again, you see this is quite clear. Straight hair, tied, and it's pulled. And what happens when you do it is you have hair loss. And look at this. You can see that pull, how it's pulled the skin, how it's swollen. But you see already she has some loss.
That's significant.
Yeah. You see that?
With bruises.
Yes. That's hair loss. That's a pulled tight.
Wow.
Pulled tight, swelling. It's so tight.
Bumps.
And look at that loss. Because that hair, that's missing hair. And that's hair loss because of tight braids. And that's a very significant amount of behavior in African Americans. Yes. And tight braids are commonality. Look how straight her hair is, pulling. She doesn't have straight hair. Look how straight that hair is coming to that braid. That means it is pulled tight and then tied tight. So this is damage. Clearly is damage as well. And so it starts off in little girls and it continues. And in time, hair is lost. These are typical women they were little girls their hair was pulled tightly, and they've had some hair loss because the pull is greatest in the front, along the side, because it pulls the hair and makes it straight to give it beauty for us. And it's unfortunate, but it's true. And if you look at this hair, you see how straight this hair is? Her hair isn't straight. So that means it's a permanent, it's not a permanent pull, but it's a pull and tied in such a way that it's a continual pulling of that hair. And when he pulls that hair, the hair pulls the skin and the skin. What's in the skin? What's underneath the skin? Blood. And so there's a diminished amount of blood that comes to the hair, which keeps it alive, which nutrients and keeps it alive. And so at some point, the hair will die. And plenty of it does. And that's why we see so many women who have loss of hair in the front, the top, on the sides, because the attempt is to make that the front hair, where it comes out of the scalp, is to make it so straight. So it happens, and that's why we see how many women who have hair loss on the sides primarily, but the top as well in some women. And it is not an attempt to cause any hair loss.
Mm-hmm.
It's just something that our people came from years ago came from Africa and came over to people in America and the people in America who were from Europe, they have different hair. Their hair is straight. It's different. And somehow along the way, in order to make our hair more like the flowing hair of Caucasians, and then at some point braids came into their life. And this is it's gone on for a long time, many years, and it's still here, and it's still causing hair loss. And so I've seen patients who've had a hair loss, and some of them I've had to necessarily do hair transplants and indicate to them or tell them not to do their tight braids like that. And here's another one. Hair loss. Sometimes you see it in the back. These are typical for hair loss. And we sometimes, because we use, in order to use permanents to straighten the hair, sometimes the permanent stays on too long. And if it stays on too long, then it can cause damage to the skin. skin that has the hair. And if it causes damage to it and is significant, it can kill the root of the hair as well. Now, most people don't get this much damage, but this shows you what permanence can do. You see, permanence can cause injury to the scalp. And even though you won't have this much damage on top, but understand that permanence placed on the skin, if they're on the skin, they can cause some damage under the skin because you won't get this much on top. But some will get on the skin and it will cause some damage under as well. And so this will cause some hair loss as well. So permanence can be extremely severe. And this sometimes this clearly is not something that a beautician had. This is a person who put on their own hair and didn't know what to do and how long to keep it on and cause damage. So keep in mind that permanence can cause damage. And when they cause damage, you have hair loss. The hair loss can be significant. And that's the reality. So,
Wow.
so this is what too much permanence can do. That's a mistake, obviously, and there's a rarity. Most people, very few people will have that much, but there are people who have it on for too much period of time. So what do we do when people have hair loss? Well, I've done hair transplants now for many years, and I've done hair transplants for men. And men don't have braids, so men don't have hair loss. They don't have a hair loss on the sides. But men may have hair loss in their life, in their relatives. There's an inheritance of hair loss. So some men become bald. And become bald, they lose their hair here. And then men who have hair loss, I used a scalp where there's a scalp that goes like this, and a piece of the scalp with hair is put around in the front for men who have hair loss. And that's a very, really beautiful way to stop the hair loss of men. Now, I found that the scalp, and that scalp is usually about 1.5 inches to 2 inches wide, and it may be 6 to 7 inches long. So a man takes it and he puts it around to the front. And I've seen many women who have hair loss on the sides from what we have just been talking about. Hair loss on the side. You look around, you cannot go any place with African American women. There are a lot of African American, well, you're not going to see somebody with hair loss on the sides. So, and women who had hair loss never really mentioned to me, doctor, can you do anything with my hair on the side? Because it's so common that nobody mentioned to me, except one woman mentioned to me, and I thought about it. And initially, at the time, I hadn't even thought about how to treat that. But when she asked me about it, I thought about it, and I did hair transplants already with men. And then I thought that if I reverse the hair transplant in women as opposed to men, it might work. So rather than take a strip of hair, which may be, say, 1.5 inches of hair, and it might be 6 to 8 inches long, and if you lift it out, take a piece like that and lift it out and go into the front, then it would give men hair in the front. Hair that they had lost, not because of braids, but because of inheritance. And so I decided that if I could take a strip of hair like that from women and bring it around to the sides and to the front, it could replace their hair loss. And if you take that out, well, you don't want to leave a space there, but usually the scalp you can just simply close. So there's a terribly thin line there, you can't even see that. And then that hair goes in that bald area.
Marvelous.
So that happens. But the first one I did in women, I hadn't done any women, so the first one I did was a woman who had hair loss in the front like a man. And so I decided to try to do a hair transplant, a flap, in men to see if it would happen in a woman. So this is a woman who had hair loss on the top like a man. And that was a problem with her. Now you can see this is a young woman. She's not old and bald. She simply had some inflammatory and circumstance that caused her hair loss. And so I decided that I would try to do the type of flap that a man is, that I use for a man in order to give hair. And so she was my first person of a hair transplant for a woman. Now here she is again for the first before, and this is a picture of her, of the surgery after flap, like I did the flap for a man. And that gave her hair in the front where she did not have, and it gave her coverage, and that gave her a whole different look. So because of the hair transplant like that with women, who I thought about doing a hair transplant for women on the sides. It was a commonality for women to hair on the sides. And well, first of all, nobody ever even indicated or said that African or American women had hair on the side. So there was no treatment for it. So I wondered if African American women who had hair loss could have a hair transplant. And having done the hair transplant with this woman, as for a man, I wondered if I could take a flap of hair rather than going to the front like a man, a strip of hair, a flap of hair. I wondered if I could bring it to the side and replace that absent piece of scalp in the front because of the hair loss that women had from braids. And so that's what I did. And this is one of the first African American women who I did a braid on their scalp. And this is, as you see, this is the hair loss from tight braids. And I did a scalp, a hair transplant in the reverse of the hair transplant in men. Here she is again. You see her here. She has hair loss on the sides, and this is after her hair transplant. And you can see that she has hair loss on the side. You see on the other side, she has hair loss on the side. And this is a hair transplant.
Wow.
You see.
Wow.
And so that hair transplants on the side gives her hair transplant. So
beauty.
So those are hair transplants. So I did hair transplants on both sides.
Wow, that's beautiful.
And she was either the first or the second person. So that was something that I did, and that was the beginning of my circumstance of hair transplants in African American women.
Well, thank God for you, Dr. Earles, a dermatological surgeon. In our community, we would like to thank you so much for everything that you've done. And I do understand that you will be publishing a book in about the next 6 months, and we will be waiting to hear about all the things that you have done, surgically and otherwise. Have a great day.
Well, thank you, and you have a great day too.
Well, thank you. Bye-bye.